All right, we are live. Hey, everybody, happy Friday. Today is February 20th, and you are hanging out with my community manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. As always, you can chat along with us on our Twitter chat at hashtag CMGR Hangout, where I know a lot of you are hanging out right now. If you love what you're seeing today and you have an idea for a topic or you want to hang out with us, go over to our website at mycmgr.com, click on the participate button, fill out that form. Sherry, Dom, and I will get that request. We'll get back to you. It's really your ideas, your topics, and you who keep these shows going on Fridays and keep such an awesome community going. So let's see, what do we have for you this week? Well, it happens all of the time. I mean, sometimes daily, in fact. You're sitting behind the keyboard, you're engaging with your community, and you read it. It's a negative comment. Now, this is not just any negative comment, but it's pointed. Sometimes at the brand, sometimes at another community member, maybe even at you personally. You get filled with a range of emotions, anger, sadness, disappointment, but you have to respond. So how do you keep your cool under pressure? So we got a perfect panel lined up for you today about this topic, and it really was inspired by our awards for CMAD, specifically the CMAD Diplomat Award for handling all situations with tact and grace. So we have a great set of folks today to talk about that. And remember, as you're tweeting along with us over on Twitter, feel free to just jump in and send us your questions. All right. So with that, I'll just let everybody introduce themselves, starting with Sherry, who was not paying attention.
I'm paying attention. I just lost the window. Sorry. It was worse than normal. Hey, everyone. I'm Sherry Rohde, and I lead community and user experience at Rebellion Media, as well as co-produce CMGR Hangout here with Dom and Brew.
That's your cue, Matt.
Hey folks, I'm Matt Kelly from Melbourne, Australia. I work for Electronic Arts as a player engagement manager and primarily work on the Sims Free Play.
Hey everybody, Dom, sorry can't get the lower third. I am a producer here at MyCMGR with Sherry and Brew, as well as work community on a couple of different brands and communication manager. Just big thanks to everybody here. This is going to be a good one.
Hey everybody, I'm David Dewald at Thunderhead.com. A community manager, long time. Been doing it for way back. I actually sort of worked for EA with BioWare, so got that gaming background too.
Hi everybody, my name is Christy Fedora and I am based in London where I run with my friend Alex Shabar the London Community Manager Meetup group. We'd be happy to have you all join if you can. And I used to be the manager for Europe, Middle East, and Africa Adobe community. So I was running and managing 1,300 community leaders across those individual regions. So lots of cultures, lots of languages, and lots of challenges.
Awesome. What a rock star group of people here today. Hey, everybody. I am Brew, Director of Awesome at Be the Change Revolutions, and co-producer of My Community Manager here with Sherry and Dom. So let's just jump ourselves into the first question, which is, what's your immediate reaction when confronted privately by a community member? So I think that's kind of interesting. So I think probably this question means different things depending on where you're at from a community management standpoint, right? If it's more social media side of things, maybe those are DMs as the brand. If you're managing a forum, maybe that's kind of getting privately messaged there. But anybody have any experience? What do you guys think?
So Brew, I'll jump in and start with that. I think the most important thing is to have rules and terms and conditions that everybody understands and knows about. Obviously, on a humongous forum with maybe tens of thousands of visitors, it can be very challenging, but you at least need to have them accessible on the forum somewhere so that you can always point back to them. Just like a 7-year-old on the playground who pushes another child off the roundabout. The teacher has to step in and has to say specifically, that's against the rules. This is the rule, and you've broken that rule. And it's really important to have that particular rule in place so that you can point back to it and you can say, this rule has been broken. Obviously, when it's a direct confrontation, it can be a bit challenging for you to maintain your independence and your neutrality, but that is why the rule is in place, so that you can point back to that. And it's unbreakable. The rule can't change. And that's what people need to see and understand when they join the forum or the community or the group, that the rules are in place and have to be adhered to.
Over on Twitter, Patrick kind of said that his immediate reaction is, I got a private message. The second reaction is, uh-oh, somebody's unhappy. So I wanted to bring that in. Hey, Patrick, thanks for joining us. Synergy, by the way. Anybody else have anything on that first question they wanted to address? Matt, are you hearing us yet, buddy? Did you get that audio back?
Yeah, I'm all
Awesome.
good now. All good.
Awesome. Good.
To be honest, I usually don't have a bad reaction if someone confronts me privately. That's usually a really good opportunity to resolve something, because you know that they're mad, but they're not mad enough to just yell at you to everyone. There's a way that you can address it pretty calmly usually.
Yeah, personally, I'm sort of in that boat. I enjoy it when sometimes I enjoy it when I get that message first, as opposed to somebody just blowing up the forum or anything like that, because you can see stuff like that really does get out of hand really quick, especially if you're not the first one to be there reacting to it. So obviously it is bad when you read it and you see that somebody typed you a short novella in a private message and you have to try to read through the entire thing. But at the same time, I always try to keep as level of a head as I can, and sort of look at it through that lens. Unless they start talking about my mama, then it starts to get a little personal.
I mean, this is in a way too. I think. I mean, even just from a customer service standpoint, if that's what we're talking about, just from a private conversation, boy, those are a blessing, right? I mean, we've definitely had opportunities with some of our clients where somebody even is tweeting out that they're having a great, hey, I'm here, and to their fans, somebody with 1 million fans, and then private messages us and tells us hey, just so you know, you screwed up on this, and this, and gives us a private opportunity to fix it. So those are always good.
And that private opportunity is an opportunity as well for you to turn them into an even more loyal community member by listening. I mean, that's what community management is all about. It's 100% about listening. I realize I'm talking right now, but it is all about listening. And there's some great quotes out there. Chris Brogan says, "Listen far more than worrying about what you should be trying to say." And if somebody, like Dom says, types you a novella, it's your job to read through, strip out their frustrations and their maybe negativity and maybe even some of their bad language, and try and hear what they're really trying to say. And if possible, pick up the phone and telephone that person and have a conversation with them to really break down and specifically target and segment what they're complaining about, what they're frustrated about. That's usually the problem. Now, because of social media, we are in the unfortunate situation of having them blasted out their frustrations to God and country, maybe before we can see it, before we can do anything about it. But the most important thing is to reach out when you can. Tell them that the whole reason that you're reaching out to them is not because they're blasting out on a megaphone and making your company look bad, but in fact, and it is absolutely true, the reason that you have a community is that you want their feedback so that you can improve as a company. Now, if somebody's just being vitriolic and has animosity to share, then again, that's when you point back to the rules and say, look, you've broken the rules. And according to our guidelines, this means this is going to happen now, or these are the consequences of your actions. And there's no refuting that.
Oh, Dom, you know what I'm going to say.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Here we go. Everybody, tune in. Pay attention. Tweetables coming.
My catchphrase. So, ultimately, your most vitriolic and obnoxious customers that are complaining are on your side. They want things to be better. For them, they feel like it's not good. I like to say they suck at communicating sometimes, because they do, and they will rip you a new one because they can. But ultimately, they want things to be better, and they feel like there's something wrong. And it may not be anything that you can control. It may be just their experience isn't exactly what they had hoped it would be. But it's good feedback nonetheless. It may not be great feedback, but it's good to know that someone is having a bad user experience or that it didn't go quite the way they had hoped, because maybe there's a product out there that can be developed to fit their needs.
Yeah, it's funny because the easiest way to build an advocate is to fix someone's problem. Yeah, that's tweetable. Look at that.
And also, Brew, I'll just say as well, to go back to that person after you've heard them out, after you've listened to them. I mean, what's great about being able to survey your community, even through a random sample of a very small group of people, if you end up with 3 people having the same issue, the same challenge, the same problem, then you can denote that there is now a trend, and you can take that back to your company. Companies can't argue with analytics and facts and figures, and maybe you can get something changed back of that, and you can then go back to those individual kids who raised this issue. We weren't aware of it, and you've now made us a better company because of it. Or conversely, really sorry, we totally screwed that up. We can't fix it for whatever these reasons are, but boy, are we going to pay attention to this in future.
Absolutely.
And how wonderful is that phrase, that I'm sorry phrase, or we're working on a phrase? Like, that literally goes so far with people, much further than you'd even think that it would. Like, just to be able to hear that, especially if it isn't a direct message, something like that, they love hearing that, because it's, hey, somebody paid attention to what I said and they're actually working on something. It's amazing.
So now let's move this conversation to the public, right? So question number 2 is what's your immediate reaction when confronted publicly by a community member? So
I know for me, I was going to say, for me, I acknowledge that I've read them and heard them and say, hey, I heard you. Because that'll go a long way to calming them down. And if it's something you need to pull offline just because it's technical, then the big proponent of not removing things from the community. I think that if someone comes in and complains or has a legitimate gripe, and other people can see the conversation that leads to resolution, then that will cause people to say, okay, now if I just approach this as a normal, calm person, and they'll respond just like this to my problem, there's no reason for me to go ballistic. I can be rational and calm and just explain my problem, and I know they'll hear me and I know they'll listen, because I've seen them do it before with people who are far worse than I am. So but I definitely acknowledge.
And matching or bringing the tone down, David, just like you said, that's so important, because that's just human psychology 101, isn't it? Just bring your tone down, same way as if you're talking to a small child or a warring spouse. Okay, let me just calm the situation down by stripping out all the negative words and saying, okay, you've brought this to my attention. What can we do to work through it together? Maybe we'll have a solution, maybe we won't. But you can do a lot of proactive work even before the conversation starts, just by bringing your tone down and not responding to the negativity.
I mean, certainly, when I'm coming into a situation like, there may be a bug that that we were completely unaware of in the game. Just coming in and just acknowledging flat out that this is something that we can definitely look into. Immediately the situation will calm down, and over time that very visible action that yes, you brought it up, and yes, we're going to look into it, and along with that, I actually really love dealing with this stuff publicly, because it allows you to be kind of more proactive than reactive in a way. Like, you can actually then start returning to threads and being like, hey, I don't have any solutions for you yet, but we have here's what we did today around it. And people, once people feel informed, it just diffuses everything. It's amazing.
So guys, what steps do you take before responding to a community or an angry community member? So I'm gonna just kind of throw us into our third question right away.
First, I turn on acoustic playlist, calm myself down.
That's a good point, right? You don't wanna respond in anger, so that's good. What else?
Well, one of the things that I like to do is go back and try and investigate and do all of my research and analysis to determine how we got to this place. So, in Matt's case, it might be a bug that he's never seen before, but it might be useful to go back and track that member's interactions on the forum and see kind of what his general tone has been, how good of a customer is he, how long he's been using the system, all of those kinds of things, and just kind of get a feel for him as an individual. One of the things that I did when I first started my role at Adobe was I had a conversation. I asked all my community members across EMEA to do a survey, all 1,300 of them, where I asked them lots of questions, and bless them, they responded, and then I followed up with a phone call. So I already knew quite a bit about that individual, and then I also asked them during the survey process to give me their list of complaints. What is it you're angry about? What do you want to tell me? What are your frustrations? And that was the first thing we started talking about on my one-to-one phone calls with them. And that was so incredibly important because I had an understanding of who they were, what kind of things they had been dealing with, how long they had been with us, and maybe I already had an answer because of that. But I think doing your research and understanding who the individual is, if you possibly can, is fantastic. Maybe in Matt's community, which might be humongous, lots and lots and lots of gamers, it might not be possible, but try and at least go back and look. And then secondly, I'd say look at your own terms and conditions to make sure that you're up to speed with your own rules so that you can say, oops, you broke that one, or according to this one, you can't really do that.
I mean, like that background checking is like, the first thing I do. We're really fortunate on the game that I work on that we can actually, check up on players' games and actually just look at where things may be going wrong. So it means I can actually just take a look and go, oh, okay, that is actually the issue. And just go back to the the player right away with okay, here's a resolution. But I always find it is a fine line to walk between that fact checking and also getting back to this person as quickly as possible. It's something like if we find a bug, then we can send it off to QA, and there's a whole process that can exist there. So I always sort of try to balance that a little bit with. Just that communication, and I mean, like along with that as well, it's when we're not able to resolve the situation right away, I always make a point to that trust has been broken and to like build it back up by at least like contextualizing what's going on. So hey, we can't fix this right now, but here is the factors that are affecting this. It's not that we don't care. It's just there's some other stuff going on, but we're working on it.
And just a little tip. This is something that I actually learned just this past week. Is it's really nice, especially if you're a community and you're managing mostly through Twitter. If you do have a lot of people and you get complaints on there, do a from-to search in Twitter, and you can actually from their username and then just put your username in there afterwards. You can get like essentially their entire history of what they've been talking about. A lot of times if you're working with things that are pretty big, I know one of the brands I'm working on is pretty big, and we get a lot of tweets, so you don't always necessarily see every single complaint that comes in, especially in our off hours. So this will give you a chance to really be able to have all of the information when you do go to them, because if it isn't their first complaint and their other ones haven't really gone, nobody's really heard them, you have the opportunity to then almost disarm them and go, hey, just want to let you know I'm on this. I'm sorry. I see you've actually sent a couple of requests and we haven't gotten to them. I want to let you know that I'm going to be working on this. That right there, if if they're expecting for you to come back with one, but you come back with 1, 2, and 3, they're then going to sort of be on your side, and it becomes a little bit more collaborative problem solving than them being really angry until you figure it out.
I think that everyone would agree the real takeaway from all this, is what happens when this, what do you do? I think the first thing that all of us do is pause. We don't immediately respond. We gather information. We look at, what the user's been doing. before we make any kind of an effort, because fools rush in kind of a thing. If you immediately respond to them and then it takes you a week to get all the information behind it to give them a good answer, then there's that big gap, unless you've been communicating with them the whole way along. But I think all of us have just about said, before we do anything, we look at the situation as best we can and then we respond.
Just bringing in a couple comments I saw over from Twitter from people chatting. So Ryan Crow, Ryan says, sometimes you need to vet the problem internally. So, can we help this person? Can we solve this online? Margot says, do research. If there's an issue, ask around and see what's wrong before you respond without any knowledge of the problem. And then Lisa also makes this point is, remember there'll always be trolls hating. Just have to shake it off. And that's for you, Dom, that shake it off line.
Yes, I love it. Shake it off, shake it off. What's up, Lisa? I went to high school with Lisa, so I like seeing high school buddies get in the Twitter chat. That's fun.
That's awesome. All right, so hey guys, for everybody, I know there's about 30 of you watching right now live. Don't forget, go ahead and either tweet me or tweet my CMGR, obviously on the hashtag. But if you have anything you want us to discuss, any questions you want to ask any of the panelists or us as a group, go ahead, tweet those in. We'll try to, with time, bring them on air here and talk about it. So with that, I'm going to move us into question number 4, which is how do you keep perspective when attacks get personal? And boy, I know that's kind of difficult. But anybody have some thought on that?
I think that over time you're just going to build a thick skin to it, and you have to realize they're not mad at you; they're just mad at the situation, and you're an easy target. I don't know any gaming community manager that doesn't have skin as thick as steel, because we've just been through it all. Because it's just a different kind of community from the business world. At least in the business world, people's jobs are on the line. Like if they go off on you, there's the chance their boss could see it and have something to say. But in the gaming world, it's just they're free to fire. So ultimately, they're not mad at you as an individual. I mean, they might be in some cases, but for the most part, they're mad at the situation. They're mad with what's going on with them and their use of your product or whatever it is. So you just have to deflect it and say, okay, let's just set that part of it aside and talk about the problem.
Well,
yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, and don't forget that the whole reason that they're in your community is that they want to feel A, a level of trust, and B, a level of transparency, and C, a level of intimacy. And intimacy directly relates to being able to give feedback. So, to David's point, which I can only imagine what you go through. I know quite a lot of gamers. I'm in some gaming communities here, and I know they're very, back to my earlier word, vociferous, and it can be quite challenging. And I totally appreciate what you guys do. But again, for me, it's about being able to point back to the rules, using neutral language, taking it offline if you possibly can, and also building up case studies. So if they're absolutely right, if you really have a problem and you can't fix it, then that is when it's time to get your company involved. Look, guys, we've got 10 people out there who are all having this problem. If we can't fix this today because it's on the roadmap for 6 months from now, then you need to give me a solid answer to go back with them. And that's when your PR function comes into play, and that's when your company stakeholders, the NHS, the National Health Service here in the UK, they actually have this fantastic social media response policy. So they're on social media, who knew? And they actually have an if-then-else sort of chart that they've created. If you get this question or if you get this negative response, this is how you answer it, which means that they can allow people who don't maybe have a lot of training in social media to actually be doing their social media. Now, I'm not talking about community management, social media, that's different, but what I'm saying is that's a nice idea to have so that you have a sort of a flow chart of things to say and do when things reach a certain aspect or a certain point, and then also involve your company as soon as you feel that it's necessary.
I mean, for me, it's yeah, in terms of that attack, I have a fairly thick skin at this point in time, but there's still days where it something can still slip through. But I mean, for me, it really just comes down to, like, you know, at that point in time, this person is incredibly angry based on everything that they know about the situation. You know, I'm sure there's been tons of times when I have called, you know, a company and they probably think I've been a jerk because I don't actually have the understanding of from their side of things. So the moment you can, you know, again, it's sort of like, you know, stripping out the anger of it and just taking a moment to inform, you know, based on, you know, everything that you do have at hand, and if that's not a suitable answer at that point, that's you know, at that point it's okay. I will see what else I can do, and yeah, you find very quickly it just flat out diffuses that anger, and quite often I get people who come back and just go, yeah, I'm sorry, I was a bit of a jerk.
Yeah, you know, I will say this. Excuse me. It certainly takes a level of passion to put that much effort into writing something that nasty about you or your company. I mean, that's a really deep, personal, I want things to be so much better than they are. That you know, if you can capture that passion and redirect it into a positive, you know, someone on Twitter, I think it was Adam Music, said, you know, be careful, you might be dealing with trolls. And, you know, the common wisdom is to don't feed trolls. But I'm the other way around. I believe in the care and feeding of trolls, because trolls can become the biggest champions if you can just get them on your side and make them understand that, you know, you want things to be better too. And I've had people that I've had to ban from a forum, you know, temporarily come back and become my best moderators because they finally understood that on the other side of the fence it's a different perspective, and that we really do want things to be better for everybody.
Yeah, I have like a classic example of that. Like there was yeah, a feature that was introduced into the game a while ago, which you know, had like a really vocal reaction. And the person who was actually heading that up at the time, yeah, like we were talking, you know, it's all kind of trying to figure each other out at that point. And one day we just sort of said, okay, look, screw it, let's just call her, which is something uncommon for us. You know, we called her and we had this just really lovely conversation with her, and she put across all her passion about the game, and she's now literally one of our biggest supporters. And you know, I'm so glad that she is you know, a part of our community now. It's great.
And you know what? I'm taking my whole clan with me.
Just wanted to highlight a couple of things I saw over on Twitter. Terry, thanks for hanging out with us on Fridays. She says, remember, they're not targeting you specifically. It's the circumstance, and you're the first one in the way. That's a great point. Peter says, best quality to have in a social role, empathy. Best skill, listening. Kristen says, not kidding, spend time with blunt people outside of the community. So thicken your skin and lose your ego. It worked for me. So that's cool. Hang out with blunt people. Toby says, take things old school and pick up the phone and never take it personally, even if the attack is. And Cheval says, the best way to keep perspective when attacks get personal is to know that they are just venting and they want to be heard. And Karina says, I lead them right back to the org or the issue/problem, the original issue or problem. I know they aren't mad at me, but the problem. I think that's a really good perspective. You're just in the way, right? And then Margot says, focus on the issue and know that folks are just frustrated. Dust those targeted comments off. And then Margot also had a question I just want to throw out for you guys, which is, how do you start in creating events for your brand? How do you bring your community together physically? So it's a little off topic for us for a minute. Do you guys have anything to add for this about bringing the communities together?
I would encourage them to do it themselves. You know, help them help themselves, so to speak. If someone is coming to you and saying, it'd be great if we could meet offline, that's the person you're going to use to help get it going, and support them as best you can. Sometimes your company can help financially get that done. I know my company is more than willing to buy drinks and donuts or appetizers. If someone came up to us and said, we'd like to get a group together and just talk about using your product, we'd support them. And that's what you can do. Is just if there's someone passionate enough to say, I'd like to see this happen, then they might be passionate enough to help make it happen.
Yeah, I know Hootsuite does a really good job of that with their Hootups, getting their ambassadors involved to host different Hootups around the area.
And if you are going to run an event, or if someone's raising their hand and saying, I really like to do this, a lot of times the individuals who are passionate enough don't have a lot of skill in running an event. So help them out, give them some advice, and also tell them to start small. Try not to invite every single person you know. Start with, the top 5 people that have also said that they would like to have a meetup or whatever. And you 6 get together at a local pub. David's going to throw in, 50 pounds for you to have a meetup or whatever at this particular pub, and come back and report to me and let me know how it goes. If you want to have a second one, great, because they'll learn a lot by hosting the first one. And I know this because I ran a community of, I think, 700 user groups across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and it's hard work running a user group. So they need to kind of have that trial session to see if they can get people involved and interested, and how much work and effort it's going to take, and how much logistics and management it will take. So they need to understand the commitment that they're undertaking. But if it's just a simple one-off and you're happy to support them, then throw a little bit of cash their way. If you can go along, or if you can take one of your or get one of your product people to go, oh my goodness, you will be the most popular person on the face of the earth by showing up. That means a lot to them.
Also, a little bit of self-promotion for CMGR Hangout. In a couple of weeks, we will actually be having an entire panel on this topic with the panelists, with the finalists and the winner for Let's Take This Offline from the CMAT Awards. So make sure you guys definitely check out my CMGR for that schedule, because that's coming up.
Well, there we go. I just want to hit. I just saw this come through. I must have missed it before we were talking about question 4. But Krista had a kind of a cool point, which is that it's important to have a support system if you're dealing with attacks, coworkers, and other people in your position. Definitely. I mean, I would say just from personal experience, we went through a little bit of a crisis where the community really got fired up, and it was hard to not take it personally. And having each other and having other people going through the same thing, or even people from my community manager who had similar problems in the past, just always good to have that support. Quick, I have a question right here from Cheval. Says, how do you deal with someone who's only trying to sell their products in your community? So how can you be diplomatic about that? Anyone?
That happens all the time in our health communities, and I just reach out to them and let them know, like, hey, this isn't okay, like, that's not why we're here. We're trying to keep it clear for communication between each other, and that just clutters up the experience for everyone. And usually they understand, and if not, if that's all they're posting, bye.
Yeah, it tends to be a very quick ban. I mean, we typically just get lots of just like sales spam for various game websites, and yeah, there's not a lot of point in trying to find middle ground there.
Well, I would also say that they're probably behaving similarly all over, right? Like, even just something as simple as a Facebook group, I've seen some, dude post something very salesy, and then you look and you're like, oh, that guy just posted in like 50 different forums using some tool or something with that same thing, and so it makes it a lot easier just to get out the ban hammer, and you don't need that kind of spam. Buy gold now. Let's see, what is our next question here? Let me just scroll up in our chat. So question number 5 is, how do your actions or reactions change when the confrontation involves additional community members? Does that make sense?
I think, I don't know, for me personally, like, I get a very defensive of community members. You have those people in there, like, you could say some stuff about me, and I know that I have a thick skin, but with other people, especially if you are like, you're the guardian, you're the one that's in charge of this entire community, so you want to make sure that, if they're getting outside of the guidelines, that you're very, very quick to jump in there and be firm with it, because you don't necessarily want to give any leeway, because you're dealing with with other people, and you know, part of your job as a community manager, I think, is to sort of protect those people. So.
Yeah, and you also need to be able to identify, just like what Don was saying, you need to be able to identify when something is about to reach a point where it changes in tone and changes in context, and to be able to step in. And I know a lot of us are working, you know, all hours that God sends, but we might like to have a Saturday night off, and so you can't be on all the time, and things do happen. But like David said, you go back to it as quickly as you can, and Matt said the same. And I think that by having the rules to point to, again, that's going to help you. But one of the things that I found with my community leaders, because I had so many of them, was that if several of them were having the same complaint, and they were coming to me as their sole point of contact to go back to the organization, then what's really nice is if you could just take a few minutes, get them all onto a call if possible to them, and make it a live Q&A. You know, do an e-seminar so they can see your face, a Google Hangout, what have you, so they can see your face and hear what you're saying. You can explain how things are going. You can also explain that you are looking to them as leaders in the community to help keep things positive and fresh and energized, and not bring everything down. So it can be, it's a little bit of a dangerous situation because you can make yourself a target, but we're all targets anyway, aren't we?
I mean, certainly, yeah, like whenever you know, I do have you know, these. What I actually look for is like standout people in interesting areas that I don't actually really have contact with. So you know, I'll be looking like we have this one woman who's just lovely. She's from Italy. She actually regularly sends us like little translation errors in the game, and actually sends us like the correct sentence structure or whatever. But you know, those are the people who, you know, I look to and go, okay, you know, I have, you know, a great amount of faith in you. If you tell me something's wrong, it's wrong. But then, you know, you start getting all these just like, you know, it's almost like a map lighting up. Like when something is going wrong, it's like, okay, it's gone wrong there, it's gone wrong in North America, it's gone wrong here in Australia. Okay, this is the level of you know, this is the level of issue that we're looking at. Yeah, it's an interesting process.
All right. We got about 20 minutes left, 2 questions left, and we definitely, Dom's mom is blowing up the Twitter chat, so hey, Dom's mom, if you're watching. That's pretty awesome, Dom.
It's true. 3, 4 people have pulled him out. Patrick told my mom that I wear clean underwear, which Patrick doesn't even know if that's the case, so I don't know.
Can we just not know? I mean, we're going to assume you do.
That's a good assumption. We will keep with that assumption.
All
Just
right,
run with it.
Question number 6. How do you handle the stress when potentially or when potential legal actions are part of this confrontation? So how do you handle the stress other than chocolate?
So for me, at the one company where I really had to deal with this, it wasn't stress at all, because what we did is we shut down their account, banned them, sent them an email that said, if you would like to continue talking with us, here's our lawyer's address. And 9 times out of 10, we'd get another email back that's saying, oh, you know, I didn't really mean that, I was just upset, and then it leads to better things. But, you know, if someone comes in and says, you know, I'm getting my lawyer, we would just shut them down like a drum and say, here's the person you contact if you'd like to continue this discussion. And, you know, most people, I mean, you know, the United States is a very litigious society, but it takes work to actually sue somebody, and it takes money to actually sue somebody. So I would say a good 98.8% of the time, it's just, you know, trying to get a rise out of you. And if you shut them down hard, they'll come back around and say, okay, well, maybe I didn't really mean that.
Yeah, and again, that's where you can point back to those terms and conditions, policies and procedures, you know, whatever you've got that enables them to be part of the community. You can point back and say, look, you know, since you've now taken it to this level, you and I can no longer have this conversation, and this is what's going to happen. This is the procedure, right? First, you get banned. Second, our lawyers get involved. third, this is where we are. And most of them don't want that. That's not what they want. It's what you guys said earlier. The passion is the reason that they're in the community in the first place. They love the product. The last thing they want is to be stripped away from it, right? So it's really important to them to not have that action. And again, that's where potentially these individuals can become your best advocates. But what I would also say on the how do you handle the stress part, that's the reason that I created my Community Manager London meetup group, because a lot of us work all by ourselves in organizations. We're the only community manager. We're walking a fine line between the community and believing in them and being passionate advocates for them, but reporting to a company, and sometimes, there's a conflict of interest there. And we need other people who understand what we're talking about in our particular situations to just hang out with. And I actually wanted to call my Community Manager London meetup group the bitch meetup group, so that we could all just bitch, just come to the group, have a bitch session, complain about whatever you want to complain about, tell us about your day, tell us how you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and yell at somebody, or ask the product manager for the 44th time to give you the information that you already asked for. Whatever it is, come along to the meeting and share and get it off your chest. And that's just having somebody to talk about it with who understands what you're going through would be a very good thing.
That's hilarious that you say that, because I feel like sometimes when you try to even use friends who aren't community managers to try to explain a rough day at work, they kind of look at you like just sideways, like they just don't get it. So.
Oh, don't you guys know? There's a secret community of community managers where we talk about everything you guys do to us. You laugh, but it's true.
So for the longest time, I was actually the only community manager in the studio, but partway through the job, we had someone else switch across, and the moment that happened, so we literally go out for coffee once a week and just kind of chat about what's going on. Because we know we're speaking the exact same language, and just being able to it's like what we call sanity checks. Like, is the way I'm approaching this actually, the same way to deal with it? It's really good having someone to bounce, things around with. I just wanted to say, I've been fairly fortunate that I haven't really had to deal with any kind of potential legal stuff. My community's fairly good about not suing me or the company. Just particularly to for anyone who may be fairly new to the area, know when to just back away from those kind of conversations and actually go seek out advice, go seek out additional information. Having an answer in the heat of the moment is not the most important thing in the world. So use those support networks.
Oh, all right. So I'm going to bring in just a tweet here from Katie answering this question. Katie says, know your internal procedure for legal matters and know how you are protected under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which I will be Googling after the show. So thanks, Katie. Thanks for that. Anybody have anything else they want to add?
Totally echoing what Katie said, the minute that you feel that your legal team needs to be involved, your legal representative would say to you, well, you should have already shut this conversation down 20 minutes ago, right? He will want you to have stopped as early as possible. So stop as early as possible and take it to them. But you need to really have an understanding of what the internal policies are. Don't waste their time. Look, this guy said he was going to drive to my house, but he doesn't have any idea where I live. Okay, well, you're kind of wasting his time with that. This guy says he's going to drive to my house, and he's given out my address. Then you have a problem. Take it to your legal team. You know when to involve them. Don't waste their time, because it's quite hard to get legal people interested. I've tried in the past, and their time is precious, and they don't want to easily give it over. So make sure that you know the rules, know when to involve them, know what to say, know the right words to get them interested, and follow up.
And just know she's not being hyperbolic about them posting your address. It's happened to me. I had a situation where someone tried to post an address for me online. I have a fairly unusual name, but it just so happens there was another David Dewald living in my city, and they posted his address and not mine. So I had to contact the hosting company. There was a blog on a blogging site, and contact them and prove to them I didn't live there, because otherwise it was, a fact. So if it's a fact, they won't remove it. But because it wasn't my true address, I got them to remove it. I didn't want that poor guy having to deal with somebody angry now knocking on his door because I did something to somebody in a forum. So just know that it can get that crazy that people will post your address. They'll post your phone numbers. They call it doxing, and they'll do it. Don't think they won't.
Rachel says this is the one thing, I think we kind of said this before too, just about letting the internal people handle it, right? So Rachel says this is one thing that's much more common but easier to handle with internal. Let HR handle the end result. So definitely, Christy, as you were saying, just sort of like wait a minute and figure out who internal you can go to. And Krista says keep track of the great things that are happening. Remind yourself of positive interactions regularly. True.
It's so true. It's very true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I keep a kudos file. I have a little folder in my email called kudos, and whenever I get a kudo, I put it in there, and then when I'm having a bad day, I just scroll through. It's lovely.
I use Twitter favorites for that a lot, to be honest. They're all either bookmarks or like things that I feel really narcissistic retweeting but like to read.
And for all you people out there that are members of communities, I can't tell you, but if you just say one kind word, that'll erase months of negativity to your community manager. I mean, we could be having the crappiest day in the world, the servers could be crashing, and everything's going wrong. And one person says, hey man, I know you got it, I know your situation, but we appreciate what you're doing. It makes the day a million times better.
So, I think all of the heads in the bottom that were nodding, and it just almost made my laptop shake, like at the same time. Like, it's so true what you're saying.
I had to bring in this question, double extra bonus points for putting an animated GIF in the question. Thank you. You've just made my day. Terry asks, when do you give up on someone and officially label them a troll or spammer and block them? What do you guys think?
So I said this in the Twitter. When I have to ban somebody, I feel like I failed. I feel like I didn't do everything I could possibly do to get this person to come around. And I hate doing it. I'll do it, don't get me wrong, but I hate doing it because I feel like some way, somehow I missed the right thing to say to this person to help them understand that we're not out to get them and that there's no reason to be so negative. But, some people are just determined to make your life miserable, and at that point, if they're really taking away from the community and making the community someplace where you hate to go as a community manager or as a community member, then that's the time when it's time for them to step away. I mean, I'd say treat it like it's a party at your house, and the community is your house, and you've invited people in, you want them to hang out and have a good time. There's that one person that wants to tell the off-color jokes, and you just kind of step over and say, hey man, could you kind of chill it a little bit and tone it down, and you step back and you see what they do, and if they keep doing it, you go in and you say again, hey, really calm down a little bit, bring it down, we're not like that here. And if they keep doing it, you just finally got to come over and say, hey man, I need you to leave, I've got to ask you to go. It's not the kind of environment we want. We want to be good and positive, but you're not meeting the standards that we would like, so I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
I just had to bring in one quick animated GIF because this is awesome. Thank you, Ryan. Online high fives can last forever. We were just talking in the chat about, I think somebody said that's how they explain their job. Like, don't you just give high fives to people? Isn't that your job? William, hey William. William asks a quick question for the panel. And then this is probably all the questions we'll have, and we'll hit on our seventh, last, final one, which is, are there any occasions where you did react and let rip about a negative comment, and what was the reaction? Anybody have a good story?
I mean, one of the things that I just eternally hate is, you know, this thing of like, you know, where you're trying to be making light out of a situation and, you know, make some sort of, you know, like a fairly dumb joke, and then someone will come along and they're like, no, but that's not funny. You know, and then sort of just go on a bit of a tangent at you, you know, over you sort of trying to lighten the mood. And I did actually call someone out on it one day, and I did it publicly. And it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like, you know, can you, you know, just shut up and go away. It was just like, hey, I'm just making a joke, you know, but here's your you know, let's talk a little bit about your problem. Yeah, and sort of, I think, you know, calling stuff when it is unacceptable is sometimes a good thing because, you know, it just, you know, flat out informs the person, but also sort of shows the wider community that, you know, you kind of, you know, looking at that sort of stuff, like you are wanting everyone to actually have a good time, and, you know, this shouldn't turn into a hostile environment. So yeah, it's like I've never had any negative outcomes from it, but, you know, certainly it's not. You know, it's not something that you pull out on a regular basis, I think.
I think it's one of those things that obviously you don't want to necessarily do that because, like, let rip, like what I think William was meaning in that. But, you know, I always think of being a community manager as like being a coach. You really want to be able to teach your community. The dream of being a community manager is being able to hand out nothing but high fives because all of these issues are handled by other members of your community. Like that's the dream. That would be awesome. But, you know, every so often, you know, it is all right, I think, to be a little bit more firm in there and to sort of set that precedent. You know, do it as lovingly as you can, I guess. But I mean, don't be a dick. But, you know, just make sure that you're being, you know, within your rules there, and hopefully your community will follow suit and sort of self-police itself in that.
I think one of the best pieces of advice I got was from my former colleague Liz Schmidt, who is at LIZIGN on Twitter. She's fantastic. And I had this situation where I had a community member who was very, very angry, and unfortunately he had broken some rules. And because he was in my region, I was the one who had to deal with it, even though I was kind of outside of the whole process. I wasn't a part of it. And so I went back to my research. I did all my research. I knew what rules had been broken. I knew the terms and conditions. I knew what to say, but I just didn't know how to say it. And Liz gave me some really good advice. And she said, in this case, you are the linchpin. You are the liaison between the company and between this individual. And it's your job to inform the individual that he's broken the contract that he had with the company, not with you, Christy. So you just need to remove yourself from the situation and say, look, there's nothing I could do here. It's not my decision. This is the decision that has been made, and I'm really sorry. I want to turn this into as positive experience as I can for you. What can I do to help you now? Can I give you a recommendation on LinkedIn? Or, you know, I will always say great things about you on Twitter when I see them, but it's not a personal situation, and I think that was a really good piece of advice I got. So thanks to Liz for that.
All right. Let's see here. What do we got? What do we have time for? I did want to quick give. We got about 2 minutes left. I saw somebody else new who jumped in, so I just wanted to say hi, Sarah. She's a gamer, cross-stitcher, and community manager for the Angels. Sarah just said, it's fantastic to see such a funny and passionate group of community managers. I can't wait to be counted among your ranks. So welcome, Sarah. We ring the tribal bell for you. Ding, ding, ding. You are more than welcome to hang out with us every Friday, and we love to see new faces. So, guys, we are out of time, so we won't be able to get to the building tips But it's been a great panel. It's been nice and quick. Thanks everybody over on Twitter for adding to the conversation. And what do we have next week, guys?
Next week we are talking with the Force is Strong with This One award finalists. So it'll be lessons from rookie community managers.
Oh,
Whoop,
rookies.
whoop.
Awesome. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. All right, guys. Well, enjoy your week, and we'll see you. Is it still February next Friday? Yeah, February 27th. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone.